Hi, I'm Jamie Carragher, and you are listening to Across the Park podcast.
Welcome to Across the Park podcast, the only place you can hear banter and debate from both sides of Stanley Park, whether it be blue or red. Sponsored by Their Clothing, Camper Kings UK, and affiliation with BetMate.
Hello everyone, welcome to Across the Park podcast. At last, it's our 21-22 end of season review. I tell you what, it's a good job we don't pay Carragher by the appearance, because he's made some appearances on the show this year. Mills, you need to go and recruit some of the guests to introduce our show, mate. But anyway, yeah, thanks again to Jamie for all his intros this year. He's been working hard. So again, it's our end of season review. So typically we go through a host of categories. We're not going to go through every game of the season. You'll be glad to know. So we've got categories that we've lined up. We've also tried to line that up with a few questions that we've had from our listeners or viewers. So we're going to go back and forth. It's not going to be all Everton or Liverpool. So if you are a blue or a red, you can probably stay tuned for the whole episode this time rather than skipping past Phil's rants. So we're gonna start with our first question, which is Player of the Year. So we're gonna go through in an order. So I'm gonna come straight over to the Reds for your Player of the Year. So let's keep it short and sharp. I'm sure our listeners will come back with their opinions, and feel free to put comments if you're on YouTube, if you agree or disagree.
Okay, I'll go first then. I thought long and hard, and you've got recency bias coming into it, haven't you? Because Salah's form dipped off towards the end of the season, and Mane seemed to pick up where Salah left off. So, I was leaning towards Mane, but when I actually looked at the stats and what Salah's produced, he was absolutely the best player in the world for the first on form in the first half of the season. And even when he was off the boil, he still contributed. If you look at assists and goals put together, pretty much a goal, a contribution per game to a goal. So for me, I think I'm leaning towards Salah. Alisson's in with a shout too, but who are we going for, T?
Yeah, I think Gary sort of emailed some of this, didn't he? And he said Alisson, which I think is a fair shout. But I mean, I can see what you're saying with Salah, but I thought he had a pretty poor second half of the season. Really, his output dropped off a cliff really in terms of actual goals and stuff. Up to that African Cup of Nations, he was phenomenal. But me, I'm going to go with Van Dijk. Just because we were so bad defensively last year. I think we conceded something like 50 odd goals or something last year. We literally couldn't do anything with that back line that we had. Him coming back in and playing over 50 games, this season for us. And I think we conceded something like 25 or 26 in the league. As good as Alisson's been, just having Van Dijk there just makes us so much more secure. And I think him being back in that back line was a big part of the reason why we're still in with a shout at the end of the season. So, yeah, I'm going to say Van Dijk, just for his presence. Just having him back made me feel so much more comfortable with that high line that we play.
Sometimes you don't realise what you've got till they're gone, and last season highlighted that, didn't it, as you mentioned? So
I think we did. We knew what we were missing, even when he was there. It wasn't a surprise when Van Dijk's not there. We're nowhere near as good, but just having him there is just a massive confidence booster every game, isn't it? When you see him walk out on the pitch, so
yeah, colossal.
Yeah, having him back was you get it from me.
Blues.
Okay, so we've got Mo Salah. What's it Gary go with?
Alisson.
Gary went with Alisson, which
Alisson is a good shout. I think that was mine and Phil's second one. So
okay, so a mix there. Then so Pricey. In fact, we'll start with Millsy. So Millsy's gone for Jordan Pickford. Pricey.
Yeah, it's hard to find any players that were consistently reasonable all season. I don't think anyone was good all season, but who was consistent. I think the only two that I can think of who had not a consistent season all throughout the season, but who made an impact. And if it weren't for those two players, we would have been even worse after we were. And that was Pickford and Richarlison. I think the goals Richarlison scored were vital towards the end of the season, last 6 weeks of the season, or whatever it was when he went on a bit of a goal scoring run. So it's out of them two, but I'll go for Richarlison. And the reason is the goals and the amount of points. I know Pickford might have won us a few points with the saves he made, but the amount of points which Alisson won us, the amount of winning goals he scored, and keeping us cool as well. Some of the penalties he scored as well. I'll go for Richarlison.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, obviously Millsy's already gone for Pickford. I'd probably be leaning towards Pickford myself. Just to mention a few other players, and I agree with you on the Richarlison front. I think at one stage of the season, certainly the middle of the season, we were really needing him, we were wondering where he was, and he, to a certain extent, had gone missing. He certainly came up when we needed him, so I can't deny that. I think Yerry Mina probably deserves a mention. Didn't play as many games as usual as he could or should for Everton, but I think whenever he played, he was a massive presence for us, and I think his presence certainly towards the end of the season made a massive difference. Anthony Gordon deserves a mention as well. Obviously, to a certain degree, a breakthrough season for him. I think his lack of output probably, leaves him out of the mix. I think he may have got voted as the Players' Player of the season, but I think that was just sheer effort and application, and the fact he's so young to make the contribution that he did. Iwobi towards the end of the season deserves a mention for his, sheer, again, almost transformation, but you wouldn't go as far as to call him Player of the Season. I'd probably go with Richarlison, to be fair. I think just the goals alone, I think he ends up getting 6 in his last 8 games or whatever, and I think he equalled that with the amount of assists that he got. I mean, even that Burnley game, which ends up being one of the more disappointing games in the running, he almost single-handedly could or should have won that game for us with his 2 goals. So,
I mean, the fact he's led the line as well. Do you know what I mean? I know he wants to lead the line, but he's not a number 9, and he's had to do it most of the time without anyone up with him. So you've got to give him credit for that as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got 1 vote for Pickford and 2 for Richarlison. Again, listeners, viewers, put your comments below if you agree or disagree. Next one is best game of the season. So it could be best game, favourite game of the season, or whatever. We'll go go across to the Reds first.
Go on, Terry, you start.
Yeah, there's a few, isn't there? I mean, I think the standout one, I think, is when we beat Man U, 5-0 away. Salah hat-trick, wasn't it? And I think that's the one that everyone would pick. But I actually really enjoyed the 4-0 at home against them as well. That. Obviously, I was there for the home game, and when you're watching that and you're watching that Man U team just absolutely chase shadows, it was literally men and boys, and I felt like it could have been 6, 7 or 8-0 that game.
Terry, I was trying to remember before, which one was the Thiago masterclass? Was that Anfield or?
That was at home, yeah, against Anfield. He was absolutely on fire, really. And that's what I mean. It was just that game. I was just like, it could have been any scoreline. It ended up only being 4, but their heads completely fell off. They were an absolute mess, man. You didn't know anything what was happening. And Diaz got 2 goals, I think it was. Salah scored and Mane scored. So the entire front line all shared in the goals. It was one of them where when you're there at the game, you're sort of like, that was class. Just absolutely class. So that was my favourite one. I think Gary went for. Did Gary go for? He went for Man U.
Gary went for United away, and that was 5-0, and I can understand why, because we don't, even though we've been a lot better than United in the last decade, they've still had that little thing over us at their place where it's hard to win. There's been a lot of draws there, so to go there this season, even when we won the league, I think we drew that season. We posted 97 points, but we drew with United that year, so it's one of them places for us, but we managed to go there this season and blow them away 5-0. So, yeah, I probably wouldn't disagree too much with that. But beating City in the FA Cup semi as well, 3-2, that was a good game. That was up there as well. But, yeah, one of them 3 for me for sure. But
yeah, the City one's interesting. 3-2, I don't even think that scoreline really reflects. That game felt so in control, that game. And that was another one where you're watching it thinking, wow, what a performance. Absolutely blew them away. And it didn't end up looking like that on the scoreline. As you look back now, look at the record, and it's like 3-2. It was a close game.
Yeah.
So
mad one. The AC Milan one where they went 2-0 up at the end of the first half. That first half hour, that was a weird one, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I remember saying to my dad, these are probably the worst team I think I might have ever watched.
We were on fire though that first half an hour.
We were, and they were abysmal. But somehow went up and scored 2 goals. I think it was because Alisson was literally, on the bed, just sitting off, thinking, what's happening? Not got nothing to do. And then 2 breakaways, and they got 2 goals. But that first half hour, absolutely unbelievable. But yeah.
Yeah, Blues.
I don't know if you mentioned it. Gary went for Man United away. You may have mentioned that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
he went for the 5-0 away. Yeah, with the Salah hat-trick one. I went for the 4. I think Phil went for the 5 as well.
Okay, I'm not going to give Millsies first. I'll go to Pricey first then for your favourite or best game of the season.
Slim pickings like in there for us. They've got, they haven't even mentioned he won 2 cups. It's not even in the top 3 games in the season. Proper heartbreaking. I mean, the best game for overall is it's got to be Palace the way it went. I think the euphoria after that game. But my favourite game was the Chelsea game at home, which we won 1-0. I just thought we were brilliant in that match. Yerry Mina was class. I said it into the match after he was just colossus that game. That's why we missed him so much when he was injured. But the Chelsea game, I just thought because that was the weekend that Burnley had won. And I thought we were down. We played on the Sunday, they played on the Saturday from memory. Saturday night, I honestly thought we were down. Going into that Chelsea game, I wasn't expecting us to win. And I was going in on such a downer. And obviously, we played brilliant. The first half was a bit one of those where it was a bit nerving, and then we came out and scored straight away in the second half, and it was just clinging on after that. But a boss atmosphere. That was like one of the first times that the atmosphere at Goodison, in that run-in was as good as it was, and it was emotional, and I just loved that game. And it obviously, us as fans, it made us believe that we could stay up, and it's something in the players as well. It must have tick something in there in their minds or whatever to think that they've got it in them to do it. And that was the first time the players had stood up for themselves.
Let me put you on the spot. If you get beaten that game, do you stay up?
No. Probably not. I don't think we would have done. I think that was the massive one. And then as I say, the first half was nervy. Second, the whole game was nervy, and at the time, you're sort of not enjoying it, but you are enjoying it. And then obviously when the final whistle goes, you realise how much you have enjoyed it and how emotional you are after it. But yeah, it was a massive game. But as I say, it was the whole atmosphere, the whole game itself, and everything surrounding it that I just loved about that one. Judge.
Yeah, Millsy's gone for the Palace game. Again, for obvious reasons, like you said at the start, it's one. I think you said at the start of the show, actually, Phil. There's a bias to like the moments that have happened soonest, aren't they? Or the ones you can remember best. But I'm going to go a little bit further back, and obviously it wasn't a great era, but the Arsenal game at home, where Damari Gray scores that like 92nd minute goal in off the post, it was just a great strike. And I think what stuck out for me, and the reason why it was my favourite game at the time, Arsenal went in front fairly early. It was at some point in the first half, definitely. And they literally, from that moment on, just had no interest in playing any football. And were trying to be like, they were holding the ball for ages, going down injured every single time. The goalie was taking ages on his goal kicks. And, you just think you just got a real dislike into this team. Richarlison had 2 goals disallowed. They were like really marginal, offside VAR ones. He eventually gets, the equaliser with 10 minutes to go. And their asses went completely. And you could see as a manager in Arteta who kind of wasn't used to. It was weird because I was saying to my dad after it was like Arteta was that paranoid about keeping the Glazer Street out of the game and trying to take the sting out of it, that he didn't just go ahead and play, because they started the game really well. And I think if they'd carried on playing football that night, they'd have beat us. But it was like the game plan was, let's get ahead and let's just kill the game and not let the fans kind of get into it. And it blew back in the face in the end. And the goal from Damari Gray, I remember watching it the next day about 20 times, because as like a player who grew up playing footy, and I could never strike a ball as well as that, you just couldn't help but admire no one hits a ball as cleanly as that. Do you know what I mean? And you just hit it, and it just flew, and it swerved, and it hit the post, and the keeper's just standing there watching it. I reckon there's nothing better than that. When a keeper sets himself, he wants to dive, and he just goes like that and just watches the ball fly past him. The fact that it hits the post and flies in as well, just a boss moment. And obviously we didn't get it. We didn't have enough of those moments really where it was a good football and goal, and it was a proper bit of football that won us the game. And I don't mind saying. I said at the time I thought it was going to be a bit of a turning point. We might try and get a bit more belief, and maybe Benitez might, because of the way that second half went, give them forward players a bit more freedom and license to go and play like that, because we did play a lot more fluidly and kind of went for them, went for the throat. But it obviously didn't pan out that way, and it was for the best in the end of the left. But yeah, I particularly enjoyed that game.
Still one of the great nights, wasn't it? Wasn't that what got said in the post match?
You know what? I'm not asked. When you score a last minute goal, I don't care who you're at. When you score a last minute goal against a decent side, and it's a goal like that, that's 30 yards out. If that was at Anfield against Arsenal and it was 1-1, all right, it might not have been one of your great nights, but you wouldn't. It was though.
Well, it's the match is all about though. And you come out, you're buzzing. You've just scored.
Yeah, I can understand why you enjoyed it. Like one of the great nights.
No, I'd end up doing it. Would they if we got to everything he said?
Oh, yeah. we had a lot of it.
Yeah, it's definitely
no mean for that one, like, but
yeah. For the next one is slightly related to the others, but we've gone a bit more general with your favourite moments of the season. So this could have been like a tackle, it could have been a bit of comedy, it could have been something that happens in the game, it could have been something that happens in and around the game. So just to give you the flavour, Millsy's one was someone coming over to him, and I remember him telling me this, we went with him at the time. Someone come over to him in the concourse in the park end and said, they love the podcast, but they can't stand Gary's smiling face when Everton lose. And I can relate to that, sitting there and Gary's like that, grinning like this. But yeah, that was his kind of favourite moment of the season. We'll start with the Blues this time. So, Pricey, favourite moments of the season?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. It was probably in the Windsor after the Palace game. Like, honestly, I don't think I've ever felt like that much relief, and like, it was like I had a proper deadline in work, and it's been stressing me out for months, and I finally like submitted the last bit of evidence for it, and it was like, it's done. And I get a reply back saying, yeah, that's sound, you're finished. Like, thank you for that. And I remember going to the bar, and this is like part of the moment. I remember going to the bar, and Dave ordered like 3 pints, like a pint each. And I went to Dave, get 2 pints, Dave, 2 pints each. So I gave him 20 quid. And instead of ordering 2 pints, Dave ordered another 2 pints each. So he basically rinsed my fucking 20 or 30 quid that I give him, and just used the whole thing. But we had like literally 3 pints each, because there's nowhere to even put your bevy down. It was that anyone who knows the Winslow knows it's not gifted with a load of spaces for you to kind of it's not a hospitality venue, let's say. And it's always like that, isn't it? Like chest to chest, and it was just boss. Everyone's like singing and whatever, and you're literally just standing there trying to drink your bevies. But yeah, that was probably my favourite moment of the season, because it was over. The season was over, and we could, finally just kind of get that monkey off our back.
I mean, there's a couple on the pitch. The Pickford save at the Chelsea game and the Iwobi goal against Newcastle, the last minute one. They were big moments. Let's say you were saying about Gray before with that last minute one. When you score a last minute goal, there's nothing better. But favourite moment of the season was taking my daughter to the coach before the game, and just with all the atmosphere and getting her up and watching the coach just come in. And even though it was nervy and you were, had that knot in your belly, as you've just been talking about, when you feel horrible, it's boss to go there and something's happening. Obviously, we don't get a lot to shout about. She's been on a game for first proper season going, and to see it and to watch it and to be there with the atmosphere and be there with her and watch her loving it was brilliant. And that was the best moment of the season for me. They were shite on the pitch, weren't they? So I'm going to have to pick one out. Yeah, that was the best moment for me. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for me, there's sort of two really. So obviously, Champions League final, we didn't get the win, but when me and my dad were in the stadium, my dad's obviously in his 60s and all that, and I've been fortunate enough to go to quite a few, European finals with my dad and that. But as he starts knocking on the wrong side of 16, you think how many more of these are going to get to. For us to get to another one, and to be there with him and be in the ground with him, and we sort of just had like a little moment, where it's sort of like, you're sort of there with your half fella. And as I've talked about it, one of my best seasons ever was when we won, the treble of trophies in 2001, because I was with my dad and just starting to go the game with him and that. So that was a boss moment, but I'm not having it. The funniest moment of the entire season, absolutely regardless, don't care what you say, was when them massive bolt cutters come out of Gutterson. An absolute comedy, 7-foot-long bolt cutters come out. And we've got about 18 fellas trying to have a go at cutting this cable.
We couldn't, I think, in the stadium as well. I said the opposite end where we both do. We couldn't really see. We couldn't see that. Like, obviously on telly, it used to look
on
funny.
the telly, the bowl cutters that came out, they were like something out of a cartoon. It was like, what a day!
Well, in the Gladys Street, he just comes out with a knife out of his sock or his pocket.
Was a pen knife. Oh, we are all sorted. It's like, oh, what's happening here? So that was definitely a funny moment watching that at home. Like, it was just like, but
Teddy, can you explain Gary's? Because he said my first sip of water on the coach
It's
home
because
from the cup final.
It's because we were all ripping you, weren't we? Because you were drinking water on the coach.
On the way back from the cup final, yeah. So I think we sent a video in the group or whatever, and Gary had just got onto water because obviously being a heavy day, being out since I think it was about 6 a.m, got picked up by the coach. So I think he had a water on the table, and the Blues seen it and proper letters him over it.
Won the FA Cup, got on the water.
Water and a packet of quavers, wasn't it, or something like that?
Something like that. Pack of fish for a water. So Millsy just proper tears him over it.
I think it was like our next 5 instant match reactions. We only spoke about the water.
Yeah. So that was Gary's, I think. Yeah.
I've been trying to buy time. I wrote my answers down on the back of an envelope there, and I missed this one out. So that's why I've gone last year. But I think
that's not like you, Phil.
I know, yeah. I've got quite a funny story. You know, we all know one of my best mates, P. So let me just describe him to the audience. He's kind of like a no nonsense. He's a man's man. One of the lads. He's sort of bald head, beard, well built. He's not like a soft touch, so that's kind of that's what we're talking about.
You know, no, this is still so when he's on the dating website.
It's important to the story, this, and I've known P since he was like 3 or 4 years old. We went through school together and that. So anyway, FA Cup final. I wasn't lucky enough to get there with Gary and Teddy, so I was in my local pub with P, and he brought his beard, and there's a few people there.
Man's man. Taking his beard.
I know, yeah. So goes to penalties, and obviously we get over the line. I turn around, look at P. He's crying. He's physically crying. Tears pouring down his eyes. I mean, what the hell, lad? I've never seen you cry in your life. And then his beard turned around, fuming. And she goes, neither have I. And we've been through some ups and downs and all that. We've been through things, never shown me any emotion. Here he is crying because Liverpool won a pen shootout. I go, what's up with you? He's going, it's all lad, just feel emotional. So that's what springs to mind on the spot. I wasn't very well prepared for that one.
It was on that though.
Yeah, that's very well.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not prepared for the next category. Next one is goal of the season. I think we've kind of already touched on these, so we can probably fly through this one quite quickly. Teddy?
Yeah, well, I'm not actually expecting any dissent from Phil, and I know Gary's agreed the same. It's got to be Salah's against City, hasn't it? You know, he danced through their defence and put it in. Interestingly enough, you could have the one against Watford. I think it was a fortnight later, and it was almost an exact carbon replica, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I think he'd done it against Tottenham earlier on in the season as well. Very similar.
He's done that in the past against Tottenham. It wasn't in the same season. But yeah, the City one,
he showed a load of strength on the very first touch. Someone smashed into him. I think he absolutely made the show of Bernardo Silva, like put him on his ass.
Cancelo gets sent, doesn't he? Like absolutely.
Cancelo gets sent.
It's just unbelievable, wasn't it? It was an unbelievable goal and showed everything that he's got in his locker. You know, in that one little sort of moment, it was phenomenal goal. So I don't think there's any argument.
Nothing touches it. But Trent did score a really good one against Newcastle, knocked it out of his feet and just stayed hit. I don't remember the Tamari Gray one you're talking about, Judgy, but I imagine it was similar to that. Knocked it out of his feet, pinged it, and I remember the camera was like following the ball into the goal, no spin, just absolutely didn't spin, just like a rocket.
It just reminded me actually the day after he'd scored that goal, Carragher pulls it up on it might have been the week later actually. It was after the game. Carragher pulls it up and he goes, it's got that camera angle from behind the goal. He went, just stop it there. He went, credit to this fella here, and he points out this fella in the crowd. He's just like that. He's at his feet. He went, he knows that's going in, and that's exactly what. When you hit a ball like that, or when you see someone hit a ball like that, sometimes you just know it's in. And
that's leaves your foot. Yeah. That was one of them. Cool. But no arguments with Terry.
Pricey.
What are we talking about again? Best goal of the season. I put Calvert-Lewin for Palace, the Palace game. I'm I was thinking about a few of them. As the Townsend's goal against Burnley, I love that one. Townsend scored a couple of good ones, actually. He got the grey one. Was it?
Yeah.
What was Millsy? Sorry.
Millsy went for Townsend, yeah.
There's that one. But you've got the Calvert-Lewin one. I mean, just every, and just I don't even have to go on about why the reason.
No, and do you know what? Do you know why I was thinking it? And obviously the enormity of the goal is one, but and yeah, everything about it. But I like all season we were crying out for a delivery, weren't we? Just good delivery into the box. Like how many times? Like I think you sat next to me a couple of games, and the whole game we just seemed to moan about the corners, the free kicks, just the delivery into the box. Just put a good ball in there, and for it to happen at that moment, it was just poignant.
It was a belter header as well. It was a really good, like you say, good delivery, boss header, and that's where we've missed Calvert-Lewin as well, I suppose. Get those type of moments. But yeah, you can. The last goal of the season is the best one, which is mad. But in the circumstances,
not quite the last goal of the season. I think Donny van der Beek claimed that one, but that was a consolation, should we say, at Arsenal. But I'm going to go for Michalenko, at Leicester. Great strike. I mean, you can't even begin to think what that lad's gone through last season with what's going on with his family in his home country. As if it's not hard enough anyway to settle into a league, the Premier League, coming from Ukraine, which is a bang average league in itself, but to also have to deal with all that, to deal with a manager, being sacked and whatever. He came, he really did step up towards the end of the season. I think the first few games we were all thinking, what have we bought here? Despite the fact he's come from a tough league, he looked miles off, didn't he? But I was made up for him to get that goal. And it was a brilliant strike, wasn't it? It's had to come on. It's kind of on the half volley, and he's caught it perfectly. Really
the height it came from as well.
Yeah, it did. It was like chipped up in the air, weren't it? He's had to just kind of catch it. So yeah, great volley, and yeah, shame obviously that it didn't end up quite being the winning goal, but it was a massively important goal for us. So I'll go with that just to kind of balance things up. But yeah, Millsy went for the Townsend one at Burnley, which was for the benefit of the listeners. He kind of chops onto his right foot at the Park End. I think it was 1-1 at the time, and he just loops it over the keeper, doesn't he? One of them typical Townsend goals, wasn't it, where he just kind of pops it from distance. So yeah, very good goal. Definitely. So we're kind of moving into a little bit of next season, if you like, now, looking forwards a little bit. So this one's one to watch for next season. So a player, a player in particular that you think you're thinking, next year, this year. Teddy?
Yeah, I think I sort of have to think Diaz or Nunes. Diaz showed us the end of last season, like what he's capable of, and I think he's going to do big things this coming season. But we've just shelled out mega money for probably the hottest young prospect in Europe up front, and from what I've seen of him, he looks a real handful. Properly reminds me of Torres. When we signed Torres, and he's just got that sort of like raw power and energy and ability. So he's obviously going to have to be one to watch. But him or Diaz for me. But I'll probably just say Nunes just on the back of the fact that we've just shelled out, what is it, 80 mil or something for him. Interestingly though, one thing I will say is I mentioned to the lads in the group the other day, and I was like, I wonder whether this might be the season we see Trent have a little bit more of a midfield dabble on the odd occasion. I think with us signing that right back, that young Ramsey, and then with Salah, obviously we starting to think about life without Salah. If he's definitely not signing and he's going to go next season, we've seen Trent drop into the midfield a little bit more in game during the season just gone. So I'm just wondering whether we might start to see that experiment a little bit more, where Salah might get rotated out the side a bit and Trent might get pushed a bit further forward. So one to watch, one to keep an eye on. I'm not saying I definitely think it will happen, but certainly something that I think we may see a little bit more of this coming season. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, I sort of anticipated what you were going to say. So I've tried to think a little bit further outside the box than that. And if you look at our midfield, everyone's saying like Liverpool needs another player because we need someone maybe in a bit more of an attacking role. Maybe we've got our eye on Bellingham. Maybe we're going to wait for that. So who's going to fill the gap? And I think people have forgot that, Harvey Elliott began the season in the first team, really. He seemed to be starting games in important matches, and he's got himself back fit now. Klopp didn't rush him. He's not the type of manager who'd do that. So he knows his time is going to come again. And so he could fill that void. We've also signed Carvalho, who also fills a similar position on the pitch. Well, Carvalho's potentially more central and Elliott's a bit wider, but they can all do the same kinds of job. So look out for who's gonna make the difference in that part of the pitch. And it could be Jota, it could be Firmino. But that position needs filling, and it's an interesting one to see who's going to fill it next year, and that's one to watch for me.
Do you think we're more likely? I think there's a chance next season that it's the first time we see Klopp move away from the 4-3-3 and we go more 4-2-3-1. Just with signing Nunes and in terms of him up front, and then as you just mentioned there, Elliott, you can play a little bit more on the outside, can't you? You've got Carvalho who can play as a 10 or on the left hand side. We've got Firmino who can drop back. So it feels like we've sort of got the players there to do that more than we can do 4-3-3. I think
in the 4-3-3 with a man that's like a pivotal striker, it's a bit different, isn't it? It's different. Exactly. You haven't got the space for the wingers to score like Diaz and Salah and that. So something's going to change. Terry, you think it's going to be 3 behind 1? So
I think a 4-2-3-1 with like a Thiago, Fabinho, or Fabinho, Henderson sort of base, and then you'll see one of the attackers in that hole in front, and then a Diaz, Salah on the right, and maybe like a Nunes up top. So
interesting.
It'll be interesting to see whether that is something that Klopp changes now, because he's been so rigid in the 4-3-3 for so long, hasn't he? But with Mane going, it's like.
Well, it's not with Mane going because you've got Diaz like for like. It's with Nunes coming in, isn't it?
Nunes coming in, I suppose, yeah.
I think if in a 4-2-3-1, though, that probably leaves you looking a little bit light in that.
Open. In
that defensive. No, looking a bit light on numbers and quality in that defensive position, because you've named 3 there, but beyond that, you're scraping a little bit, aren't you, in terms of
players? You've got Milner. You've got Milner coming in as the 4th choice defensive mid.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't, because Thiago's always played as like as a base of a 2, hasn't he?
You're struggling to rely on Thiago, aren't you?
Yeah. But I think it'll be Fabinho, and then you've got Henderson, and you've got Thiago, haven't you? You've got 3 to fit in a 2, and then you have still got Milner as a last resort, and you can always sort of revert to a 4-3-3 if you're really shy in the middle, couldn't you? I think there's 3 or 4 players you can play in that 2.
Sounds fair. Pricey. Sorry, before we get Gary said Diaz, but I'm sorry, Pricey, and I'll mention Millsies at the end in case Pricey goes for the same.
The one I've picked for one to watch is Dele Alli. Not because I think he's going to light up the world or he's going to be the best player ever or he's going to come on. I'm just really intrigued to see what Lampard can get out of him with a full pre-season. I think he came in. Well, he did come in January, devoid of confidence. He just looked like head down. Didn't look like he knew what to do on the pitch. But it's not talent; it's confidence, and it's having someone to put their arm around him and get the best out of him. And Lampard, from what I've seen so far, he seems like a man manager, a good man manager, if nothing else. So I'm really interested. And he brought Dele Alli in off his own back, knowing what Dele Alli can do. He obviously sees something in him that he thinks he likes, that he can bring something to the way that Lampard wants to play. I'm just really intrigued to see what he can get out of him next season. You can't just, he's only 25, I think 26. You can't lose your talent. I know players fall off a cliff sometimes, but not when you're as good as him.
Isn't it? It's desire for him as opposed to.
But I think it's confidence. I do think he's just been left with no confidence. I think Mourinho just threw him out to the wolves. If you watch that documentary, he weren't very nice to him. If you know, for want of a better phrase, he sort of picked on him a little bit. And then he just never got back in the team. So I think it's a big confidence thing for him. And yeah, it is desire thing, but you get desire from the fact that you're in a good environment and you want to play and you're enjoying it. So I think I'm just really intrigued to see what Dele Alli can do, whether he's good first of all, whether he's going to be in the team, what Lampard can do with him, and if he's going to produce for us. Because if we can get him playing the way he was playing, he answers a lot of questions, doesn't he? That we're looking.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, because I literally forgot that we had him, and I was like, I'd almost cast him off a little bit, even though he did have he produced a few cameos, and in particular in that Palace game, he made a massive difference. The
main reason why he's one to watch is the money. Like, there's a big money thing tied to that, isn't there? If he does,
really.
I'd rather if you're paying the money, it means he's been successful and he's played and he's in the team, so that's fine. It's not about holding him back for that reason.
What's the deal though? Isn't it like 40 mil though?
No, 20
million after 30 appearances or something like that.
30 appearances, yeah. He's only made like 7, I think, so far. So, you know, if he makes 23 appearances next season, you know, Lampard's not soft. He's going to be very aware of that clause.
Yeah.
He's either going to be part of his plans or he's not going to be part of his plans, isn't he? So I think it's a really interesting one in terms of...
It is interesting, that, yeah.
Definitely a situation almost to watch, isn't it? And probably a measure of, like he said, his desire. Because I think that can only be the thing. I agree with Price. I believe that Lampard, if anything, looks like a decent man manager. He has, you know, his experience of being a player. He's worked under a lot of different managers. He seems to have took that as his little USP. Is like, look, I can work man to man with people, and most of the players seem to advocate that as well. Even John Joe Kenny, who's left, said, look, it's been the most enjoyable 3 or 4 months that I've had at Everton. Even though I knew I was going at the end of the season, he at least he put his arm around me. He was honest with me, and he believed in me when he put me on the pitch. I'm going to go with a bit of a left field one to a certain extent. I'm going to go with Ben Godfrey. I think when we first signed him, he maybe took a little bit of while to settle in, but I remember he got that left back berth and he was proper battering ram, and one of them old school defenders who just goes in and smashes people. He's athletic. He's half decent on the ball. He's obviously shown that he's versatile. I think he could be a really big player for us next season. He got some injuries this season, but generally seems like quite a robust player. I think that injury, he's openly said, the injury he had this season's like the only real injury he's ever has in his career, or serious injury. So he come back. He looked fit towards the end of the season. I think he could be a really big player for us next season, particularly if Lampard's going to persist with a back 3 or a back 5. Tarkowski, is obviously coming in. I think he'll be a good leader. I'm not saying he's going to completely rip up trees and everything, but I think he'll be a leader in the sense that he's a lot more aggressive than Michael Keane is. He's good in the air, and I think Godfrey will enjoy playing alongside someone like that. So I think he could be a real plus for us next season, almost like a new signing. Millsy's gone for Nathan Patterson. Obviously, just kind of broke into the side. Young Scottish player, very similar to the lad you've just signed from Aberdeen, who, again, he's come back into the Scotland team and then Nation Cup, Nation League, Nation fucking whatever it's called, games, useless internationals, Nations League, is it? He's come back into the Scotland team, so he's got some minutes under his belt before pre-season, which should be perfect for him. So that's 2 mils he's gone for. Last but not least, bit of a weird one, so bear with me on this one and try and use your imagination. So if you could say one thing or ask one question to the manager during this summer, what would it be?
Go on, Terry. I've got no answer prepared.
Actual question.
Either ask him a question or
Make a statement
or say something to him as in, look, Frank, have a kind of message to him or whatever.
Yeah. I could say one thing to Klopp. I think I'd say to him, if anyone offers over 25 million for Keita, take it.
Go on, Phil.
Bloody hell. Can I have a hug?
Right, Millsy.
No, just got to thank him, haven't you? If I had a chance to speak to Klopp, I'd be saying thank you for sure. For sure.
I'd probably say don't be fooled by some of the charlatans who showed up for the last few games of the season because they're still shite. So don't think that they're good players just because they turned up for a few games. They've been letting us down for years on years. So in the summer, don't be hoodwinked into it. Still get rid of them all and bring some better players in. That's what I'd say. Because we've been watching them for years and most of them are loads of bollocks, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Mine would probably be struggling here now.
Yours should be, Gary, being a UEFA qualified coach should be, Frank, this is how you defend.
Yeah. No, you know what mine would be? Find someone who can take a corner or a set play. Just find someone who can take set pieces, because the difference that would have made, and I haven't actually seen the stats, but that was my most frustrating thing this season. The most basic thing in football for me, like, getting set plays right. And to be fair, I think we defended them slightly better. I've never seen a team defend better set plays than Ancelotti's team, by the way. And you've seen it, I think, in the Champions League. They kind of sit right on the 6-yard box. That old thing of like, let's get a high line and whatever. His teams just go and sit all on the 6-yard box and just go ahead. We'll just defend this. And it was just so refreshing. But from an attacking point of view, I really want to see someone in that team, whether he signs them or whether he develops it on the training pitch, who can take a corner and a free kick. I don't want to see Anthony Gordon over free kicks and corners again, unless he's spent hours and hours on that training ground and he can actually do what he's paid to do or what he's supposed to do. So that would be my simple message to him. And then just to finish it again, and it's a kind of quick one, because we did get some questions about predictions for next season. We all agreed that it's too early to do that. You know, Liverpool may have finished their business, as Phil made the point of saying, but a lot of other teams haven't finished their business, and that has an impact, I guess, on your expectations as well. And we haven't got a clue what's going to happen. We might not even have the same owner in 2 weeks' time. So it's going to be a weird summer for us, as usual. So the last question is, or point is, hopes or expectations for 22-23. So hopes and expectations, Terry. We'll go with expectations then, to a certain extent. Like, based on last season, what are you hoping for? What are you expecting?
I'm hoping we win the Premier League, but I'm expecting us to be in it to the last kick of the season, like we were this season. Because why not? You know, I think we showed we can compete. You know, we've done that on all fronts this season. Only lost 4 in, what was it, 63 games or something like that. So I just I hope that we win the Premier League next season. But I expect us to be in, you know, the latter part of every competition and going into May with live hopes in many of them. So yeah, that was my hopes and expectations for next year.
I think Terry echoes the hopes and thoughts of every Red there, to be honest, because obviously you hope Liverpool have shown that we're capable of doing a quadruple. So, you know, your hopes are that you can get it done. Your expectations are certainly below that, but yeah, let's hope we can get a Premier League. It's a change up for Liverpool. I don't know what to expect from it personally. Terry's got an idea of how it's going to all work. I've got no idea. I can't get it right in my head how we're going to look. So, not sure what to expect, but I expect us to be competitive in all competitions.
Crazy.
I hope that we have a joint up transfer policy in the summer, and we bring in players and we stick to an idea, the type of player we want to bring in. And Lampard's allowed to bring a couple in, and he's allowed to get rid of a bit of the deadwood that I spoke about before. That's what I hope in terms of the season when it comes. I just hope Lampard's then given time, because I don't think it's going to be a season where we just keep getting better. There's going to be ups and downs, but as long as the idea is there and we can sort of see what he's trying to do still, and the as I said, the transfers are there. I just hope the fans stay on board with them and give them at least the season, providing it's obviously not a complete disaster. And I'm just hoping for I know it's a top half finish I'm hoping for, because that's progress from this manager's progress on the season before, isn't it? Just hope a comfortable top half finish. I'll be happy with that. A few games where we can enjoy ourselves. We're not nervous coming into the end of the season. You know, we've had a good few wins, and we're enjoying it. And it's been enjoyable to go to the game last season as it was the last few games of this season, but for different reasons, because we're playing well or we're at least playing all right.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I couldn't agree more on the sentiments of the transfer policy and the management. So I'm not going to quite go that deep. I just want to enjoy watching us play again. Do you know what I mean? And enjoy the football. And again, there have been some enjoyable moments as we've said, but a lot of the time it's been because our backs have been against the wall. I want to see us kind of take the game to a few teams this season. So I hope to see a team that can get us out of our seat a bit more. As I've said, I hope to see us score a few more set pieces. It was driving me mad. But I think those two things combined, as in us taking the games to each other and maybe being us taking the games to other teams and also being a bit more creative and able from set plays should, and this links up with me hopes, allow us to have a more than decent cup run. It was disappointing this year to kind of fall, to that Palace team the way we did, because we shown if we wouldn't have shown them as much respect in that game, or we would have played anywhere near the level we did, the second half against the Goodison, we shown we were capable of beating that team, but it was just a little bit too much respect, and I guess they were still suffering a little bit from a lack of confidence at the time. But that was a bit of a chance to at least get a semi-final, and I think we're more than capable of doing that next season if we can join a few more things up. So yeah, that's it. Again, we will come back to, I guess, putting our neck on the line, so to speak, later on in the summer, or as we approach the pre-season. Massive thank you to our long-term sponsors, Camber Kings. Huge support to the show, so really do appreciate it. It's a big summer for us. We are taking a few weeks off. We've got some Everton shows coming up for the Blues. The Reds are going to work on a few things in the background, but we've got a few shows with some of our ex-players coming up. And again, we're hoping to announce something towards the end of the season in terms of the future of the podcast, with some exciting opportunities for us. So we'll be back with news when we've got an update on that. But just want to say thank you to everyone for sticking with us. It was our first season on YouTube. It's been a big learning curve for us. We would have liked to have done that, in a face-to-face environment, and that's very much what we're working towards. So again, hopefully we'll have some news on that front during the summer. But enjoy your holidays. Enjoy your break. We want to have a little bit of a break from footy. Me and Price are exhausted from the mental torture of this every week. The Reds are probably itching to get back into it again, but I think we've earned our break from all that. Anything to add, lads?
No, I think that's it, isn't it? I mean, as you say, big thanks to everyone, listeners and viewers on YouTube, and yeah, I am itching for the season to start. Like after a couple of weeks, you sort of like get back in the swing. You want to be getting out, having a pint, and watching the game again, don't you? So I think I'm almost ready, but yeah.
I'm just still glad the podcast's still going, because if you were in the league and we went down, there's not a chance we'd be doing this podcast.
No way. No, it wouldn't have been a season review, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, yeah. And that's adios for season 21-22 at last. Glad to see the back of that season. Take care, everyone. Catch you all soon.